Hello, beautiful soul family. Rebecca here, your vibe mentor. Welcome to another Monday Mastery. We are tapping into the current energies, sort of taking a read on where we are right now, revisiting this past week, and bringing through some guidance on how to proceed forward. Thank goodness I can say we are experiencing a little bit of a break for the first time in a few weeks. We had pretty sustained intensity for at least 2.5, if not 3 weeks straight, which is uncommon, unusual, and fun, but also challenging all at the same time. So kind of looking back at the solar weather for this past week, as well as a little bit of the Schumann resonance. And then I will jump into the timeless message. So if you are catching this anytime after the end of May, definitely check out the timeless message. There will be a timestamp for you in the description or the comments. All right, so looking at this past week, we did start off the week with continued sustained solar energy. We had the same sunspots spewing more X-class flares than I have personally monitored in my lifetime at many days in a row, which was a whole lot of fun. So Monday we continued to we had 1 X-class solar flare and 7 M-class. Tuesday we had 3 X-class, pretty high intensity solar flares, only 1 M-class. So we can start to see the decline already there. I haven't even covered C-class flares over the last couple of weeks because there's been too many M and X. So for anybody who's new, C is sort of the easiest, softest. M is increasing in intensity, and then X is the most intense. But an X-class flare can go anywhere from 1 to, I think, 40 or 45 we saw for the Carrington event. So they can be pretty intense. Wednesday, we had 2 more X-class solar flares, and then again, 2 M-class solar flares. So last week, the week prior, we were seeing 10 M-class solar flares a day. So to have only 1 or 2 a day, we can tell that we're already on the decline. So Thursday, we had 1 M-class. Friday, again, 1 M-class. But Friday, we like to call them the unmeasurables. There was pretty significant intense energy that was not registering as a solar flare or the Schumann resonance. We did have a geostorm that started on Saturday where we got to a KP5, which is, relative to the KP9 that we had the week prior, not so bad. We did hit a G2 storming level on that one. And then Sunday, only 3 M-class flares. We had minor spikes in the Schumann resonance Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday, but again, minor. And it's all relative. So those spikes might have seemed more intense many months ago before we entered into solar maximum. But right now they don't feel as intense. And of course, I don't spend a lot of time in Schumann resonance because we know that the Schumann resonance spikes because of lightning. What's interesting is I have heard it said and have not been able to scientifically validate the fact that the Schumann resonance pretty consistently stayed right around a 7.58 hertz. And it was said that around 9/11, we saw the biggest or one of the first initial, again, I don't have the evidence on this one, initial spikes. So there was a correlation made between the human activation and the Schumann resonance because of the assumption of the event of 9/11. And we have now come to understand that the Schumann resonance is pretty consistently connected to lightning strikes. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't affect the human body. It does mean that there's a storm present and there is lightning present. And when there is lightning, we do know that norepinephrine is released in the body or in the brain because of the perceived danger that a lightning strike could present. And so the correlation there biologically is designed to say, hey, lightning equals danger. Let's move ourselves to safety. And that is the function of norepinephrine in the brain. That being said, we also have the location variations. You can look at the Russian instruments relative to the Italian instruments, and you'll have a spike on one and not on the other because it is local to that storm and those people and that space on Earth. We don't have a Schumann resonance measurement device locally to the United States. So it's very difficult to say that what's happening in Russia or Italy is affecting us here. Although I have certainly, and I'm sure many of you can also attest to the fact that there have been times where I said, what's up? And I go check one of the Schumann resonance measurements, and it sure enough, something's up. So more to be discovered around the interconnections between the storms, the physical body, and how far out we are feeling these things, which is really interesting because something that I had thought about including but didn't add to the notes, but is now coming through, which clearly means it's for all of us. It needs to be said. Have you ever noticed if you are mean to someone, you feel the pain? Have you ever noticed if you witness someone else being mean to someone else, you feel the pain? There obviously, we all know this, but there is an interconnection that we cannot deny. So that would also partially explain the Schumann resonance. And it would also suggest that we need to be kind to each other more often than we are currently. All right. So, the flare producing sunspot that has given us a whole bunch of fun for the last 2 weeks has now turned to the backside of the sun. It will reappear on May 29th. There is no guarantee that it will be quite as active, but just know that it potentially could come back. We also have another sunspot that looks pretty active that may present and come forward by the 25th. So for now, we're in the lower geomagnetic storming range or percentages of expected storms. What I found very interesting is kind of going back to that Friday unmeasurable is, and even since then, I would say Friday through the weekend, there has been a lot of activity, energetic activity happening in the brain and body, in particular the crown, a lot of fizzing and popping, and even just perspective shifting where it feels as if I'm trying on clothes, and however I perceive something, it subconsciously, unconsciously, without effort, is shifting and changing all on its own. It's like, whoa, we could see it this way, or we could see it that way, or we could see it this way. And I will say that through trauma healing and through removing the blocks and the traumas that live in the body, you learn to sort of dance around something to find new perspective intentionally. And so that may just be part of sort of the muscle that's being created or cultivated in my own body. But I do also hear feedback from clients as well that there's a lot of things that are shifting, a lot of new awarenesses and perspectives. So you're not alone in that. If you are experiencing that, if you have a lot of popping and fizzing in the crown, the new perspectives, the new identities, the new clarity, the new certainty, more presence, that is all part of what most of the people that I'm engaging with have been experiencing. There's a moving and a shifting, and in depending, so there was quite a bit of external movement and shifting, and it seems in the last couple of days it has shifted more towards the internal, and I get a strong sense of sort of a settling in. Excuse me. One moment, please. I need a little water. Where did I put that? Okay. Okay, there we go. So I have noticed historically, I would say about a year ago, I noticed this, and it has been less so lately. But when big flares come in, or big energies, or big highs, big peaks where you feel like I'm flying high, I'm feeling good, everything's amazing. On the backside of that, there can be sort of a decline in energy. Some people can explain it as yuck or weirdness. It's as if you climb a mountain, you must go through the valley next, and the ebbs and flows are natural and normal. I like to think of it as decompression instead of depression, where the energy can feel so high and you get so used to being up here that the decline feels like, whoa, what's happening? But it's not a bad thing necessarily. It's just we had a lot of energy. We had a lot of activation. It's kind of like drinking a cup of coffee and then it wears off, right? No big deal. It just might be time for a nap instead of another cup of coffee. We have this tendency to want to always be riding high, and we have to be careful around our perspective and our assumptions on what it means when the energy, and it's even like, I don't want to say dip necessarily because it's not down. It's more activation versus less activation. If we were always activated, we wouldn't be sleeping. The nervous system is designed to move between activated and rest and digest states. So think of this as the digestion. That's a perfect example, because if we're activated, sure, we're running from a tiger, but that's all well and good. You can call it fun. But when you come back to resting and grazing and you get to take a nap and digest your food and heal your body, that's equally as good as going out for a run. Right. So really be careful not to see this with judgment, that we don't have to make it mean anything. It certainly doesn't mean anything negative. Just learn to be with whatever is, and take the temperature and really tap into, okay, this is the tone of the music that's being played right now. This is the theme of the energy that's available right now. We're going to ride it. Let's be with it. And I love the analogy of being with a child who needed a hug, and don't be the one to pull away first. Now, if you have children, or if you were a child at one point, you recall the desire for a hug. Oftentimes, right, co-regulation comes when we are in distress. We need someone else to give us a hug, to give us a little love, to make us feel safe, nurtured, cared for, supported. We need to come together as two nervous systems to co-regulate, because just like grandfather clocks on a wall, they will entrain to each other. If we give a hug to someone, we, as the offerer of the hug, may be in a less distressed state. We have a nervous system state that is a little bit more stable, a little bit safer, a little bit calmer, more in that rest and digest state, that allows the one in distress to come and co-regulate and entrain to the nervous system that is the safe place. We want to be with these experiences and these emotions just the same way we would be with a child who needs a hug. Don't go in for a hug, pat, pat, and pull away. Don't be the one to first pull away from the sensations and the experiences internally within you. Be with them. Imagine hugging your inner child and be with that inner child until they decide, I've had enough. I'm good now. Right? It is in that distraction, the disassociation, the desire to look away from difficult emotions that causes addiction and keeps us stuck, opens or keeps an open stress response open instead of allowing it to close. Right? So notice if you have a tendency towards negative thinking, if you have unhealed trauma, if you have lived a life of struggle, if you have been stuck for a very long time, there can be a tendency to perceive or to look for problem, right? The traumatized brain sees problems or threats where there are none. It tends to constantly be hypervigilant and looking for the next issue. And so when we move into this rest and digest state, it can be very difficult for a hyperactive, hypervigilant nervous system to calm down. And it keeps saying, well, where's the problem? There must be a problem. There's going to be a problem. It must be around this corner. It's got to be coming next. So we really want to catch that tendency and notice there's no problem. There's no problem here, right? Be still and know that I am God is the recommendation that allows us to heal ourselves. We must take time for the decompression, for the rest. Notice your addiction to activation. Be still so that you can know. Be still so that you can receive. Remember, we know that what goes up must come down. Newton's apple, for some reason, comes to mind as well. Whether or not you challenge theory or not doesn't matter, but the apple falls from the tree, right? So if we are up, we will eventually come down, and that's okay. That's part of life. Down doesn't mean bad, right? It's the ebb and flow. We're coming into healing, coming into digestion and rest, and the increase in your immunity. Let the ebb and flow happen. Let it go. Be with it. Stillness does not mean a lack of progress. If anything, I've had to retrain my type A hypervigilant tendencies to know that stillness actually produces more than activation. That when I'm in stillness, I have gotten out of the way so God can come and work. I've done my part. Now I get to rest and let God handle the rest. The shift is happening within you. So be with those parts in this moment. Close your eyes, take a deep breath. Breathe into your body and scan your body and notice what area of your body calls your attention most. For those of you who have practiced and have followed me for a long time, you know being in the body is the key to just about everything. That everything you need is within you, that the capacity to heal comes from within. There are parts within you and they need a voice. They need to be heard and seen. So go inside your body, find the area of your body that calls your attention most and ask, what do you want to tell me? Now learn to ask one question and then be still. Let the part speak. Don't let the brain go look for it. Let the body bring it to the brain. Be with those parts and listen in quiet. Wait for their guidance. If you feel soreness, let the soreness speak. Don't let the brain say, oh, this is why. No, let it speak. Watch your thoughts. Your thoughts are the source of separation, the source of misperception, the source of your pain and suffering. Thoughts are tools to be used by us. We are not to be driven by our thoughts. So really utilize some of these statements I'm about to offer. Allow yourself to believe there are no problems right now. All is well. All is well. Only good will come of this. I am safe. Right? I remain unlimited. I'm an unlimited being, receiving from an unlimited source in an unlimited way. I am the only one who limits myself with my perception and my thoughts. I love this divine pause. Sink into the love for the stillness, right? And thank you. Thank you, of course, always. The best possible solution is gratitude. And say thank you for the rest. Thank you for the insight. Thank you for the leveling up that happens in these moments that I am still. There are no problems, only a perception of problem, right? So not a lot to offer today beyond that. I am going to say we must keep it quiet when it is quiet. And so that is reminiscent of this message as well. We do have a full moon, surprisingly, coming on the 23rd, being 3 days out. So usually we start to feel the activation. So energy sometimes has a mind of its own. We do have a lot of Venus, Jupiter activations this week. So just open to receive, anticipate the good will come, speak it into being through your words. Only good will come of this, and know it is done. I love you, my friends, and I will see you on the next one. Namaste.